What day is it, Mark?
Oh, good question. I was going to go on the Google machine, but I think it's Friday.
It's Friday. You know what that means, Mark?
Rapid Fire Friday.
Boom, boom, boom. Rapid Fire Friday.
Rapid Fire Friday. I got a question.
All right. I guess this isn't an email bell question.
No. I could email us, but then I'd respond to myself.
That'd be awkward. Anyway, What's your question?
I had some conversations recently.
Yes.
And one of the questions that came up this Halloween was, is Halloween demonic or does it have pagan roots?
Well, this is one of the things that, again, is one of those questions that we need to leave to people's consciences. So some people say the pagan roots are undeniable. Other people say that actually Christians dressed up like the ghouls to show that they were no threat. And so the question to me is not a settled question. I want to just say that honest Christians are going to disagree, and that's okay. I think it's worthwhile for us to, we had candy at our door. We didn't have a ton of kids come to the door, but we had candy, and I put a big bowl out there so some enterprising junior higher would come along and take all of it,
the whole thing?
And they did, which was awesome.
Wow, did you see it on the Ring camera?
We don't have a Ring camera, which was awesome. I was pretty excited about that, but because I didn't want it in my house. But anyway, I think honest Christians can disagree about how they participate or don't participate, there's. For example, if we want to get radical, we need to be careful about this kind of thing because all the days of the week that we use are named after pagan gods. And so
how far can you take this?
Thursday is Thor's Day. And so are we going to say are we not going to say Thursday? Are we saying actually it's Thor's Day when we say Thursday?
Yeah.
And so are we paying homage to the god Saturn of Saturn when we say Saturday? So I think we need to be careful. I mean, other people would say that the wedding rings, anyone who's married is it's wrong to wear those, and there'd be Puritans in the past that would say the devil goes round and round in the wedding ring as they put it on, because of all kinds of other reasons. And so I think we need to be careful with some of that stuff because you draw a line in some places but not in others. Some people would have gotten upset about Christmas trees back in the day, about their pagan roots. Tell me about that. Yeah, well, and so I think we just need to be careful. It's fine for us to have personal convictions about these things, but I think we need to be really careful about pressing those onto other people. I will say this, though. Halloween does, at some level, you can celebrate Halloween in such a way as to celebrate death, and death is never something to celebrate.
Yeah.
Death is our last enemy. Death is always evil, never good. Death is not meant to be a part of life. Death is horrendous in every form, whether it's a child or someone who's 95. Death is not to be celebrated. And so for us personally, as a family, whenever our children would dress up and if they went trick-or-treating or whatever to get candy, because everybody just wants candy, we wouldn't let them dress up in a way that would celebrate death.
So would you also want them to not dress in ways that are representing evil in some way, like no demons, no?
Yeah, definitely not for us. Yeah, right, for sure. I mean, I don't want to celebrate or do that I don't want to do that, but I also want the kids to be able to get candy. So I'm not gonna I don't think it's some kind of massive compromise. And I think Christians can disagree.
Yeah, I think you also mentioned before. With them, as someone who could give out candy, you have so many people coming to your door,
right? And
you have an opportunity to witness to them, but also just to show the love of Christ.
Be hospitable, and for sure.
And that's not a common day-to-day thing where someone comes to your door.
To the door, right? Exactly.
Just random observations I was able to observe. I watched my girlfriend handing out candy, and the interesting part is no one actually went up to the door. Everyone handing out candy just sat in the parking, on their parking, on their driveway.
Yeah.
And there was twice as many adults as kids. So there was adults taking their kids, but also just adults by themselves.
Hanging out, right. Yeah.
And I don't remember, when I was a kid, I had no spiritual upbringing whatsoever, so I didn't even think of if it was something demonic. It was just to get candy, like you said.
Sure,
and our goal was to just get to the richest neighborhood possible to get those king size.
Yeah, right.
You know,
not the
like,
fun size.
We're just trying to. No, I'm not.
Right.
No, the fun size isn't fun.
Right, exactly.
Well,
like you were,
but there'd be 100 kids and 5 adults.
Was it cold?
Yeah, it was cold.
So people were inside. It's not cold here in October, right? So
yeah,
you
that's
sit
true.
outside on the driveway, and it's like, let's hang out. And so like, it's not cold, and so
fair.
like that's one thing.
But just the amount of supervision too. Like my parents would just sit in the car and drop me off for a couple blocks. We're like, hey, meet up in a few blocks.
Yeah, the world's different now, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
Anyways, that was something that came up.
Oh wait, Heather behind the glass has something.
Get that fog out of the way.
Okay. I have had this question about Halloween and different things for a long time. And since it's a topic somebody else brought up, I get to ask, right?
Sure.
Do it.
Some folks in my past have done things like Christianize.
Yeah, sure.
Christianize the holiday.
It's Reformation Day.
Reformation Day.
Like that, yeah.
Shout out to Martin Luther.
Sure. When I grew up, I was Lutheran, so that was
That's a big
definitely
deal,
that.
yeah.
But I mean, even further, like we take the seeds out of the pumpkin to represent how the Lord has taken out our bad. And have you never heard of this? You're looking at me like that.
I've never heard
If
of that
the
in my life,
audience
yeah.
could see your face right now, it'd be amazing. But
See, that's where Christians take something and make it weird a lot.
Which falls into the weird doctrine.
yeah, so that's what I was wondering. It seemed weird to me, but and if you
weird.
do that, I'm so sorry for those that are listening. But
sorry,
but
friends.
to me, I've seen that a lot with even Christian.
So wait,
Christmas
let me just
and
pause this
stuff.
real quick. So they dig out, like they'd make a jack-o'-lantern with that gruesome face with the candle on the inside, but the seeds were pulled out. Is that right?
Like the whole expression. I should look it up online because I know that there's like a whole thing.
What
that
you
says,
did though? You guys did that?
No, it was neighbors of mine who were like, they want their kids to dress up and have fun and go for the candy, but they Christianized it in a way that made it seem, and so they would do like the whole pumpkin carving and all that stuff, and they would give reason.
Okay.
And the same came true with Christmas time, like
The Legend
why
of
we
Sleepy
put.
Hollow, like that dude puts that on his head and stuff. I mean, that's like, I hope they did the right thing with the seeds anyway. Okay, sorry.
I don't know, but I mean, just like it represents this, it represents that, it represents whatever. Like,
sure.
What about that? It's just weird.
I think there's, I don't know. I mean, people can do what they want to do. And like, I think go for it if you want to do that. That just sounds weird to me. I mean, like one of my goals as a Christian is to just not be weird. And so like we should go forth and just be normal.
Yeah.
And so like, let's go forth and be normal so that when you describe what you do, people don't go, what?
Yeah. Right.
You know, like sometimes we're strange enough. You know what? We believe that a Nazarene carpenter was God the Son who died and rose again, and you have to believe in him to go to heaven. That's weird enough.
Yeah.
So we do need to add other layers to that, you know? And so,
Okay.
but I don't know. I mean, if that's real
You've
meaningful.
never heard of it though.
No.
Oh, okay.
If that's real meaningful to somebody, God bless them.
Yeah.
You know what?
Okay.
Go forth and be blessed by your own seed analogy.
Pumpkin seeds for the win. Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah, all I could think about was commerce. I just wanted to get those king size and hustle my sisters out of the good candy. That's all I did.
Trade them out.
So, anyways, that was my question.
All right.
Here's another one regarding communion. And
Communion.
I'm just going to lay out a situation.
Lay it out.
So let's say I bring a guest to church, and I'm not really sure of the status of their salvation. They're not closed off, but they're not plugged into a local church.
Okay.
What is my role in the church does communion that week, and the pastor explains it clearly from the pulpit what it represents.
Yep.
What is my role as somebody inviting a guest into explaining or enforcing communion, whether or not they should take it?
Well, I think it depends on who the guest is, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, I would have a conversation with them if you know that it's going to be a communion Sunday and say, hey, you know, if we have communion, this is what it is. The person speaking on Sunday is going to make an invitation to anyone who's a believer in Jesus Christ. And so any believers in Jesus Christ, they're welcome to celebrate the Lord's Supper. He'll say that, right?
Yeah.
And so there are people who celebrate the Lord's Supper who are not saved. Some people who think they're saved but are not. And so, you know, like that's a difficult thing to police. The only time I would say, hey, you have a responsibility is that if someone's under church discipline.
Okay.
And they go to take it. Like that's not, they should not. So they should have no confidence they're a Christian.
Okay.
Now, I understand that there are a lot of people who don't understand. Maybe they come from a Catholic background and everybody just takes communion there and that's what they're thinking.
Yeah.
I don't, that's not a time where we're going to teach it. That's not a time where we're going to try to enforce it. It's open for us so that any believer who comes is welcome to, and we recognize there'll be some people who take it that aren't Christians.
And is there a responsibility for us as a church or in church leadership to keep that from happening? Is there judgment that's incurred from that?
Well, we do have this. So first of all, the warning we have in the scriptures is taking communion in an unworthy manner. And
what does that mean?
Well, that's not to unbelievers. That's to believers. And so an unbeliever who does it, I don't think if it doesn't mean anything to them, I don't think it really matters.
Okay.
It's to believers. So we see in 1 Corinthians 11:27, whoever therefore eats the bread or drinks the cup of the Lord in an unworthy manner will be guilty concerning the body and blood of the Lord. Let a person examine himself then, and so eat of the bread and drink of the cup. For anyone who eats and drinks without discerning the body eats and drinks judgment upon himself. And so the way to do this in an unworthy way is to, if you read the earlier part of chapter 11, Paul gets on the Corinthians because they're divided. And so there's a division, there's factions and division in the church. And so the way to take communion in an unworthy way is to have bitterness, angst, or something against someone else in the church. And so when you do that, that's taking communion in an unworthy manner. And so and so the examination we're called to participate in is, do I have anything against someone else? Have I forgiven everybody who's wronged me? Or am I harboring bitterness and resentment? If I am, and I take communion, that is an unworthy way to take communion. And in fact, we find later that there are some people who get sick and ill because they take it in an unworthy way.
Okay, I thought you were going to say getting drunk on the communion wine.
Well, that's a different thing.
Yeah. So you hear in some other churches that they have a closed table, or I think that's the right term, whereas it's for their members only. Like they might acknowledge that you're a brother or sister in Christ, but their communion is only for someone who signed their name as a member.
Yeah, I understand that. I respect that. I think that's wrong because it ends up communicating, whether explicitly or implicitly, that this church is the only church that is true.
Yeah.
And if they believe that about communion, they're also going to believe that about baptism. And so
you have to get rebaptized when you become a member
in that church. And so like they should if they're consistent. I understand that. I don't think that's a good practice.
Okay, and then we've chatted about this before, and it's a question that I feel like people ask a lot, relevant to communion. Is there precedent in Scripture for how often to take it? Every week, every Sunday, on your own?
It's as often as you do it, is what it says.
Okay.
And so there's no direction that it's weekly or monthly or whatever. And if you look through church history, everybody had different kind of. One of the reasons it became weekly is because there's a ton of people who couldn't read, and it was a very easy way to display the gospel. Right?
Yeah.
And so the gospel of Jesus Christ is displayed, right? And that's the whole thing. Like that's why, like the body and blood of Jesus is consumed, right? You see Jesus' body broken, that's the symbolism, and his blood spilled for us. We take it in. And if we are and that's the ground of our forgiveness. And if we're harboring unforgiveness towards someone else, we're literally doing damage against the symbol, right? And we're showing, well, I've been forgiven, but I'm not going to forgive other people. And that is a recipe for spiritual disaster, personally speaking.
Okay, last one. There's often some debate about whether to use juice or to use alcohol. Wine or juice. Yeah. Is there precedent for either or? Does it matter?
No, it doesn't matter. Just fruit of the vine.
Yeah.
Fruit of the vine. I mean, we're not going to use Diet Coke, right? We're going to use fruit of the vine.
We're not sponsored by Diet Coke either.
Right? No. Well, just fruit of the vine. It doesn't matter if it's fermented or not.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for answering that. And that's all the questions I have for now.
For now, but there will be another Friday that comes. Because you know what, Mark? They come once every 7 days.
Every 7.
Every 7. And so Rapid Fire Friday, we'll be back.
All right. Well, I'm going to hold you to that.
All right. Sounds good.
Take care, guys.